All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to SACAC's Tennessee Counselor Drive-In Workshop. Trish and I are glad to be here with you today. I'm Tyler Llewelling. I'm located in Knoxville at the Webb School of Knoxville. I'm Assistant Director for College Counseling here, and I'll let Trish introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Trish Culver. I'm one of our regional admission counselors for the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
We're glad to be here today to bring you several great presentations. Um, We got counselors from all over the state, and we've got 4 great presentations with a great mix of topics like preparing students for the college admissions process, updates to the ACT that are happening this year, and of course, everyone's favorite topic, the FAFSA, with updates after year 2 of the revised form. And then a session of 5 admissions professionals from 5 very different Tennessee institutions. So there'll be an opportunity for a small break in between each session, but please feel free to come and go as you please. I'm sure there are lots of things that you have to be doing today, so we appreciate you being here with us. But before we get started, I do want to take an opportunity to acknowledge that this is National School Counseling Week. So on behalf of the Southern Association for College Admission Counseling, we wanted to thank you for all the work that you do to make an impact on helping students achieve their success. So for more information on the week and resources, you can visit the site for the American School Counselor Association, which Trisha's got there on our screen, and then of course SACAC's website as well. All right, so we will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Catherine Wood.
And just 2 little quick house meeting notes. So again, a 15-minute break after each session, and this webinar will be recorded for the future. So if you feel like you missed a note or anything, please know that SACAC will have it up on the website shortly after today.
Yes.
Hey, y'all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here to kind of talk about preparing students and school counselors in the college admissions process. A little bit about me. I was a professional school counselor for 8 years in the state of Georgia, and then have now transitioned to being a school counselor educator in Tennessee at Tennessee Tech. So excited to be here.
Catherine, I just made you the host, which stopped my screen sharing. So can you make me host again, and then I'll make you co-host?
Sure.
Then that should get us going.
Right. Let's see. Where do I go to make you host again?
So just hover over the SACAC Zoom, and then in the upper right-hand corner
Okay,
with the
yep,
3 dots,
yep.
just make me host again.
Okay. Yep.
And then I'll share my screen back up with the presentation.
Okay.
And then let me make you co-host.
Okay.
And then
Awesome.
does that allow you to click through?
It says that I'm co-host, so I'm kind of assuming, but let's see if it actually helps me to click through. Doesn't seem like I can click through, weirdly enough. Oh, there we
It's
go.
me.
Okay. Oh,
Can
that's
you do it though? Are you able to?
Mm-mm.
Let me try that now.
No.
Hey, Catherine, we had this problem last year too. I think at the top where it says SACAC's Zoom screen, click on those 3 little dots and then click Request Remote Control and see if that works.
There isn't a request remote control when I click on the 3 dots.
Yeah, it's not there for me either.
Oh, okay.
So I did the with share screen, and then multiple participants can share simultaneously. And then let me see if I can go in. I'm perplexed. You guys are seeing the presentation, right? Thank you.
Trish, I guess we can just take turns going through the slides for them. That's the only thing I know to do.
I know. So it's not even letting me go through it now. Like I'm clicking to move forward and it's not allowing me to click through it. Let me stop sharing for a moment and then we'll try to reshare.
Sorry, y'all. It's like this works fine when we practice it, and then when the real thing happens, it doesn't.
Good old Zoom. Okay, Catherine, you try moving through.
Okay. No.
No. Okay. I will be your
Okay.
liege
You will
today.
be my Vanna White.
Yes.
It's good. You're good. And so a lot of this stuff is coming from kind of my time as a school counselor in Georgia and just some helpful things that we were able to do and put together for students and just the community. So starting with school or student engagement with underclassmen groups, advisement groups, individual meetings, and college visits, and I'll kind of go through each one of those. So for underclassmen groups, for ninth grade, we did classroom guidance in English classrooms. And it was just kind of a welcome to freshman year, right? And so we discussed who the counseling staff was, how we differed from middle school counselors, and what we did as high school counselors, and then what was consistent about us, like through the middle to high school transition, where we were located, right? Which seems, funny, but I'm like, for ninth graders, they don't really know, right? They're kind of trying to reorient themselves. Talking about what they needed to graduate, how to calculate their GPA, so weighted versus unweighted, what that looks like, right? And then kind of touching on going ahead and kind of talking about weighted and unweighted for college admissions process, just because, college admissions is different for every institution. And so sometimes they just use those core classes, right? And they're weighted or not weighted depending on AP, dual enrollment, honors, accelerated, things like that. So kind of just like touching on that, like a sprinkling of that for the ninth graders. Talking about AP versus dual enrollment, my school had AP. And so if you have IB, that's also something you can discuss. And then just trying to get them to develop good study habits. And this is an active link for tracking their activities. And we always encouraged them to at least be involved in one thing freshman year. And to go ahead and start tracking your activities in the ninth grade, because it's much easier to track it when you are just starting out rather than being an 11th or 12th grader and trying to think back on all the things that you did. And so to track those activities was kind of a piece that we went ahead and discussed. And then we had 10th grade talks. And so 10th grade talks were in January. We had registration in February. So we wanted to kind of provide the 10th graders time to see us, but not, kind of dominate our time during registration, since you'll see what we meet with juniors. And so we divided groups by alpha. And we did it over the course of the week. And then it was just for us to kind of reintroduce ourselves, how we can help, discuss upcoming registration, upcoming options for dual enrollment and work-based learning. And in that, discussion that we had, just letting them know that we are available, we are here, we'll kind of be in certain places during registration if they have questions. But just kind of like as a check-in, right? And that advisement was a 20-minute time where it was just kind of a check-in with students. I've also put on here some resources. And so one of the resources is NACAC has a step-by-step college admissions and planning process. And then they have like an early high school and a later high school. And so this early high school guide, if you do not have access to it yet, it's a great free resource that they provide. You just go on their website and request it. And so that is an active link as well. But that is a really great resource for you as you're trying to think of like how to do some of the college and career planning and prep with those younger underclassmen. Then we did advisement sessions. So we would have senior session week where we would have kind of a different category every day. And so it was from navigating the Common App to organization and timeline of applying to college and kind of looking at all the schools you're applying for and making a timeline and organizing kind of what you needed for each college. What are the timelines of applying, right? Kind of, and so that they could feel like they have kind of more control on the process. I used to tell students that it's easy to feel like you're kind of chasing deadlines or chasing the process a little bit because there's so many different kind of balls in the air that you're juggling. But it's really helpful if you can kind of own that a little bit, right? And have kind of your process of like, okay, I know these are due October 15th. I know these are due November 1. So this is where I'm going to put my focus. And so it helps students not feel so scattered or overwhelmed by the process. Wednesday, we would have letters of recommendation and kind of discuss that. We would have essays on Thursday, and then Friday was question and answer. And so all the counselors were available to kind of answer questions and talk through anything else that they had. So we would divide these up by counselor as well. And then we would have like that was open the 9th through 12th grade. We had a military service academy info session. That was really helpful for students just interested in military service academies and starting that, again with 9th graders early. And then we would have things called lunch and learn. So again, in Georgia, right, we would meet about Georgia and Georgia Tech. Those were our huge institutions that a lot of kids wanted to apply to. So in Tennessee, right, it may be different than that. So the lunch and learn was a time where they could bring their lunch and learn about a specific, kind of specific school and kind of what that looks like. And then it was also a time where we would have separate lunch and learns for teachers on recommendations so that we would kind of either help newer teachers or kind of refresh teachers, kind of older, more established teachers of like, hey, this is kind of what it looks like now for recommendations. So application tips. So we have a letter of recommendation form that students filled out in order to provide the teacher. But we kind of talked through like 11th or 12th grade academic teacher is really where your recommendation is coming from. Can speak to engagement in the classroom, peer interactions, work ethic, initiative, how you handle, tough times or assignments or kind of like how you got over kind of the hump if there was a struggle. Versus your counselor is kind of trying to give context to that transcript. When an admissions officer looks at your transcript and is trying to make sense of the choices that you made, is there any context that is helpful to provide, as well as specific examples? I used to tell students, a counselor is a person, at least in my school, that you were with for 4 years versus your 11th or 12th grade teacher is somebody that you kind of choose that you felt like you had a good relationship with and that you liked. And so with your counselor, it's important to also develop that relationship so that they can really also speak to you and provide those specific examples of you. Bullet points are really helpful in recommendation process just because admissions officers are looking at so many applications. And it can be, that they have like 5 to 7 minutes to look at an application. And so bullet points just get to the point, right? Like it kind of removes some of that language that we can kind of use, I feel like sometimes to, just add a little bit more. And it's like, let's get to it. And so I felt like bullet points were really helpful. And in talking to admissions officers, they felt like that was something that was really, it helped them just kind of ease and organization of viewing it. With essays, really talking to the students about the format is not formal. Don't over edit it. It really needs the student's voice, right? So admissions officers can really tell when it has been kind of over edited to the point where you're like, I can't even really hear the student in this, right? Like I can't really um understand or really know who this person is. And that's really the point, right? Like they want to know who you are and they want to really get a good idea of who you are. Make sure to answer the question, which may seem silly, but so many times people like kind of go either around the question or they just don't actually answer the question. And so really sticking to that and really doing that, kind of going through a brainstorming session and having them kind of look through the question and then kind of brainstorm what that looks like and kind of outline it or think through it, right? Like depending on the student, that may be helpful. Optional supplemental essay. Always told the students that, if there is something that you didn't have in the application that you really needed for them to know, or really there wasn't kind of a place, right, then that can really be helpful for the optional. The supplemental essay, right, like answer those. Tell if there is something specific that is optional for university, right? That is your opportunity and time to be able to share something about yourself that maybe wasn't captured elsewhere. I also told students like it's a little too common. I actually went to summer seminar, which I'll talk about, but went to summer seminar and there they were just saying, mission trips, torn ACL, sports injuries. It's very common. They hear that a lot. They read that a lot. And so, trying to kind of think outside of those boxes a little bit. And it needs to be student focused. So if it is like I am talking about losing my grandmother and how important she was to me, a lot of times that can become about your grandmother and it doesn't tell the admissions officers a lot about the student. And so really being student focused and not focusing on others, right? Um, the university knows that the student wants to be there because they applied, right? And so but if it's an important point about the university, right? If there is a specific research program or a specific, initiative that they have that really aligns with something that you care a lot about or has really been the reason or the catalyst for you applying to that university, right? Just make sure that that super specific detail is expressed on a supplemental essay just for that college, number one. And then number two, that, it is talking about that specific thing about that college and why it interested you or why you feel like it is a good fit for you in that way. So individual meetings with juniors were in the spring. And so we met with every single junior in the spring on our caseload. And this is kind of the things that we would talk about. So we would talk about summer and senior year, right? Because registration was right around the corner. So most of our juniors wanted to see us in that January, February before registration. And then you would have some that didn't, but for the most part, that's kind of how the chips fell. And so it was a super, super busy time, but it was one of those things where it was kind of preventative in a lot of ways because it's like if I go ahead and tell you I have a set time to meet with you, right? Then I'm less likely to have to do all of this kind of back and forth or all of this kind of impromptu meetings. And so it really did help kind of streamline things. So we talked about post-secondary plans, so college visits. And we use the campus visit checklist and questions to ask, which are really great resources that again are actively linked on this PowerPoint. We talked about SAT, ACT, and then we began the discussion about recommendations and kind of their college list. And then we had to fill out a questionnaire before meeting. And so this kind of goes back to a little bit of what we had them start in the ninth grade. But fill these things out. And then that really helped them when they then went to apply their senior year. They already had all their honors and awards, their clubs and athletics, right? Work experience, community service, things like that. And here I have attached the NACAC later high school college planning if you don't have that, and that's a great resource. And then seniors were in the fall. So it was always really fun to see where junior was in the spring with their plans. And then just kind of something happens, right? Like over that time period where you meet with them again in the fall and they have a little bit, their headspace is a little different. Their mindset's a little different. And so We kind of revisited the college list, revisited kind of timelines, recommendations, essays, the Common App we talked about and applying to college, what that looks like. And then this questionnaire that we filled out was a little bit different, right? And so the junior year one we felt like helped to prepare them for that Common App and college application process, as far as like what all you have to fill out and what that kind of looks like, and kind of wrapping your head around kind of evaluating where you are, right? Um, and then this really helped with thinking about who you are as a person, right? Kind of w- why you kind of are the person that you are, like what your favorite class was, why it was your favorite class, what your best friend would say about you, how has our community changed because you were here. That was one that was really cool to just see kind of what they would say. It's really can be hard for students to talk about themselves in these type of scenarios, especially. And so I think these questions for senior year really help to prompt them to think about, how do I talk about myself? How do I describe myself? How do I kind of talk about what I'm interested in and why I'm interested in it, and how that came to be, right? So it was more reflective to kind of prep them for that essay process. And then also it gave us some really great ways to have some things to talk about, or have some things to kind of dive into a little bit deeper with them, which of course then helps us for our recommendation. And so one of the things, as you know, school counselors, we really needed to connect with the college reps, right? And so we used a system for college reps visiting. So rep visits is what we used. It was really important for when they came on campus that we made them feel welcome, that we had kind of a counselor that was in charge of the rep visits of counsel, I mean, of admissions reps. And so we had a counselor, and it was me that, for some of the time I was at my last school, that, you know, I knew who was coming that day. We advertised it. We had it on the announcements. We had it on our website. We had it on our calendars, right? We had a place for students to sign up. But then making sure that when that rep came, that we made them feel welcome, that we introduced ourselves. Just because we wanted them to know that we were really happy that they were here. We know that reps sometimes visit multiple schools in one day. Sometimes our school I was in a more rural district, and so it took them a lot of times, they would come from like the Atlanta area and drive almost an hour and a half, right, to see our students. And so, you know, that's a lot that they take out of their day, and we know that it's like a huge busy season for them. And so just making sure that they felt welcome. One of the other things is that we did not do lunchroom visits. I know lunchroom can sometimes be popular because it's like you kind of put you know, they have interactions with students, but what really we found was that advisement time, even though it was 25 minutes, it was really like the students who wanted to be there and who really engaged and expressed interest in that school had better one-on-one time and just better interactions with the college reps, versus in the lunchroom, our students don't really talk to them and they just can feel really isolated. And the lunchroom also is like, sometimes, you know, for us, we had 4 lunches. And so it was like 2 hours that this person is sitting there. And so the engagement is just a lot different. And so we felt like advisement was just a really better time. And we felt also that the reps really liked advisement and having that kind of dedicated space and time versus the lunchroom. And so if you do currently use lunchroom visits, I would just encourage you to really think about and consult with, you know, some of the reps that kind of come to your school on a regular basis, just to kind of talk about that and to see, because I felt like advisement time was just a much better time and our students got a lot more out of it. And I felt like the reps also got a lot more out of it, and just being cognizant of their day and what they have going on. We also had journalism and yearbook students come down and kind of write up a blurb about the school, and then share it in our newsletter or on our like website blog. And that also helped with student engagement for college visits, right? And so that would also help because it would help the journalism or yearbook student, right? Like kind of with those writing skills. And also sometimes they were a student that, you know, was a ninth or 10th grader that didn't really know a ton about the college process. But then on the flip side, it also helped with, us being able to really advertise and telling other students about that school, which helps with the engagement with the visits as well. So some external resources that we use were college admissions blogs, common data set, and then counselor specific advanced events, which I'll go through. So the first is college admissions blog. So you will see some Georgia representation here. That is not to hate on Tennessee whatsoever. It is just like the world that I knew. College admissions blogs are really helpful. They really can provide insights into the college application numbers for that institution, kind of updates on deadlines and decisions, insights into the kind of application trends that they're seeing, advice for parents and students. So UTK has one. I would say Georgia Tech, even if you don't have students applying to Georgia Tech, Rick Clark has a phenomenal admissions blog that just really talks about the state of admissions as well and kind of trends as well. And he has some really good stuff for parents that he writes. And I feel like, again, just kind of hearing it from a different source or hearing it from another person besides us can be helpful sometimes. And then UGA also has a blog, and Dave Graves does theirs, and so I screenshot the admissions advice for parents. So again, like sometimes it is helpful for students, but it's also helpful for parents. If you have parents that really like being involved in that process, like these are kind of some places that you can send them to like help them kind of feel like they have something to do and something to focus on in the process. College Essay Guy is a phenomenal resource. He does have a lot of free resources. There are some paid resources as well, but he has some free resources that are great. And so it can really provide information on building a college list, writing personal statements, essays, financial aid, etc. And so he has, like I linked before, like your college list and questions to ask when you are on a college visit. And so that's a really great resource as well. Grown and Flown were parents that created this when their children went through the college admissions process. And so it's really kind of, again, kind of tailoring to the parents. It's really great for parents and guardians to look at. And again, kind of say, this is what other parents have said about this process. So these are kind of some information and resources and advice and perspectives on the college admissions process. And so they have a great like how to visit colleges, what it looks like applying and paying for college. So again, this is a really great resource, especially for parents. It can help you as a school counselor as well, but it's also really helpful for parents so that they feel, kind of supported and heard in this process. Common data set. I love common data set. I used it all the time as a school counselor. And again, it was also something that I used for when students said that they were applying to an institution that, I kind of knew was a reach for them. I felt like common data set was a really great way for them to then go and kind of check it out for themselves and see the hard data about schools and hard data. I am never going to tell a student not to apply somewhere. But I am going to give them all of the data and tools that I can to hopefully help inform their decision about where to apply and where to spend their time applying. And so this is like what, for example, Georgia gives you, right? They give you kind of a snapshot, they give you kind of a breakdown. And so that's a lot of times what people see is like, oh, I have to have these amount of APs, or I have to have this GPA. And Common Data Set really breaks it down. And that's why I love it so much, is that it really breaks it down of, how many people are applying, what they rate as like the most important to least important, which I also think is really helpful for students, especially when they're like, but I've done this. And I'm like, yes, that matters, but not as much as, right? And so it's helpful for them to kind of wrap their head around how the college is viewing their application. So again, like you'll see kind of these snapshots of like average SAT or average GPA, and then this really breaks it down. And so I just think it's a helpful resource. And again, this is something that students and parents can really look at themselves by just like Googling, right? Common Data Set, UGA, Common Data Set, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, Common Data Set, whatever the school is. So that it can really help just kind of give them some more data points, give them some more information about kind of where they sit in the process. And then there's counselor specific events. So it really provides opportunities to meet with other counselors and speak with admin reps. And so our admissions reps, it was really helpful. I felt like it was a great way for us to look at and understand kind of what admission trends are and deadlines and information on new programs. And so, UTK has a breakfast with counselors that they have. And so that is a really great resource for counselors here in Tennessee. Other places will also have them. It's just kind of a lot of times they'll have maybe like a Zoom with 5 or 6 colleges that you can get on the Zoom and hear from their admissions reps about different things. And so there's kind of different ways that they do this. But it is really helpful as a counselor just to kind of be informed about what's going on and what's happening and what are they seeing and what are they, are there any new initiatives or things? And then SACAC events. So summer seminar, it is in July this year, Belmont and Vandy. So it's in Nashville. I went to summer seminar. It's for kind of your first 3 years as a counselor. I think it was my first or second year, and it was at Rhodes, in Memphis. And it was fantastic. Like I learned so much and I really got to take a lot back to my school and back to my students and community. And so I highly recommend. I met some amazing other counselors kind of within the region. And I still talk to some of them to this day from that. And so it was a really helpful resource. Sweet Tea Tour is in June this year. It's in South Florida. And so that is a time where you get to visit colleges, within a region or within a state. Since Florida's so long and like big, then, they're doing South Florida this year, but it's a really great way because I think as a counselor, like whenever I would go on visits to colleges, I felt like I understood the college so much better. And I was able to really speak from a place of knowing rather than just seeing what was on the website, right? And that's the same for our students. And so when we get to kind of share in that or talk about different colleges or talk about different things, I think that can really help the students too. And so Sweet Tea Tour is also an awesome opportunity. And then we have Advocacy Day. And so that's Advocacy Day on the Hill is on February 25th this year. And so please make sure to sign up for that. That is coming up super soon, but that is really a day that we get together as SACAC members, advocate for not only school counseling, but also, what's happening in higher education. And so it's a really great way for you to network and for you to meet others and also for you to just kind of gain more insight and information on what's happening and how we can serve our students through advocating for them. So here are some other ideas. So student parent nights, staff education, final transcript form, and senior activities. So I'll go through each of these. So student parent nights, we had a College 101 and dual enrollment night. We had that actually on the same day. And we would do College 101 at the beginning, and then we would have like a 30-minute break and then start dual enrollment. And so if parents wanted to come on the same day, they wanted to stay for this whole thing, they could. Or if you just were interested in dual enrollment, then you could just come for that half, or just interested in College 101, you could come for that half. And then we invited dual enrollment representatives from the schools that we partnered with for breakout sessions so that they could kind of talk about their dual enrollment, what that looks like, the process, things like that. And then we had college boot camp, which was for seniors held in August, kind of before those fall sports started. That was similar to week-long advisement lessons that we did, but it was really helpful to have kind of some dedicated time in the fall at the beginning of school to this is kind of our kickoff to college admissions. We had parent info night, so we would do 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th. So we would divide those nights. And then we would have financial aid night. And so we had a representative from the state come and speak with parents, and then counselors were there. We told students we were one-to-one as far as computers. And so we would tell our students to bring their computers if they needed, to either start the FAFSA or to have help with that. Then counselors were also there to help with that. So staff education, we provided teachers, admin, and counselors with kind of a blank pennant, and said, ask me about my education. And so then they would, as you can see, decorate it however they wanted to, and then it would be laminated and then put outside of their door. And so it was just a way for us to kind of create this college going culture, and also for students to see that, you know, not everybody went to Georgia, or not everybody went to the kind of these same schools. We had you know, a variety of education and diversity of institutions. And it really helped to promote conversations within students and teachers about, oh my gosh, you went to Wisconsin, or you went to Australia we had one teacher that went to Australia for her master's degree. You know, kind of talking about that, or kind of sometimes the path to where they ended up, right, was very different from where they started. And so they may have a degree in something totally different and then come back and, you know, later get their education degree. So it was an interesting conversation, and a really great way for us to engage with students and staff that way. So we had a final transcript request form. So they had a Google form, students did, that they filled out no matter what their post-high school plans were: work, military, 2-year, 4-year, gap year, right? Like, we had a form, and so they had to fill it out. A list of colleges that they talked about where they applied, where they were admitted, and plans for after high school. And then we took that and we made this as a big list, right? So we, as you can see by the picture, we had our College of 2023 at this time, like, acceptances, and the bolded one was like where they were going, right? And so where they were admitted was all of them, and then where bolded is where they were going. And then it also helped us with percentages as far as post-secondary, right? Saying this percentage of our students go to 4-year, this percentage go to 2-year, this percentage go to work, military, those types of things as well. It also helped, you know, having a school profile really helps college admissions reps, and it really helps the school kind of be able to know what is it that you're offering, what is it that you have, what's kind of the current, you know, test scores and graduation rates and all of the things, right? What do we need to know about your school as a college admissions rep? And so it's really helpful. And this final transcript request form was something that we did. So I would send it out. They would, you know, you would probably have a third to half fill it out like they were supposed to. And then we'll talk about senior celebration day, but then I would kind of, when they would come up for senior celebration day, I would get them to fill it out if they hadn't already. And then at graduation practice, I would have them fill it out if they hadn't already. And so I got every senior, but I had to track some of them down, but it was at places where I knew all of them would be, or a majority of them would be, where I could kind of catch the stragglers, so that we could kind of have as full data as possible. So senior celebration day was May 1st, or as close to it as it could be. We also asked staff to wear shirts from their alma maters. And so we had the backdrop from athletics, and we set up in kind of our commons area, and we would post on social media on our Instagram stories. You know, they could hold up the pennant, and we also had a whiteboard if we didn't have their school or what they were doing. So no matter what their post-high school plans were, this is something that we wanted them to participate in, and we could help to celebrate them. And then senior spotlight started actually before that. So I would send it out right after spring break occurred. Like, I would send it that Sunday. I would send it for that Sunday to send it to all the seniors, and they would fill it out with their favorite school tradition, their staff shout out, plans after high school. And then we posted it until senior celebration day, and those were on our Instagram. And so it was a really great way for seniors, you know, to engage and share kind of about their time at our school, but also kind of what they were planning on post high school. All right. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to contact me. Any of the resources here, if for some reason you can't access them or have, you know, issues accessing them, please let me know. I'm happy to send you whatever I can.
All right.
Thanks so much, Catherine.
Yeah, you're
So
welcome.
great.
Sorry, I was trying to go fast because I was worried about time, and then I ended up being fine. So
Oh, you have plenty of time. Thank you. And I'll leave this slide up for our break so that if anyone wants to take it down and get your contact info. But thank you so much for sharing your wonderful resources and all your ideas. I can't agree more with them. So I love everything that you mentioned.
Oh, good, good. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there was a
Awesome.
lot of good plugs on there for like summer seminar and dry run, which I think dry run applications have closed if you wanted to be on faculty for that. But as we'll talk about later, summer seminar applications close February 15th, I think. But yeah, thank you. Um, there is a question in the chat.
Yeah, so for the senior sessions, we kind of we did it two different ways to kind of test it out. One year we did it during their lunches. So again, that would have like smaller groups of seniors during their lunches. And then one year we did it during advisement. So we kind of felt like it actually worked better during their lunches because again, we had almost 400 seniors. And so during their lunches, they're just smaller pockets, right, of seniors. Uh, so we did it that way, is that they could come during their lunchtime and kind of hear the presentation. The negative for that for the counseling staff was that you had to do the presentation 4 times. The positive of that was that it was smaller. And then of course during advisement, you have a larger group, but you only have to say it once. So it kind of depends too on how big your school is, engagement, and if you're trying to kind of grow it versus if you felt like you've grown it where you're going to have a lot of students come and you need to kind of shift, how you give the information out. So
And then Catherine, someone had asked in the Q&A if they could get a copy of your slide deck. Do you want that? Should they just email you and you be able to provide a copy to them?
yeah, yeah. If you'll just email
Amazing.
me, I'll be able to provide it to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone else have any questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. We do have a little bit of time before the next session, so that gives you some work time to maybe check out the line that you might have at your door right now. Um, pull up the schedule. I think we have until 9:45 Central Time. Is that right, Trish?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we will see y'all back here in just a few minutes for our next session on um, understanding the upcoming ACT enhancements.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. I'd love to introduce our next session presenter, Schwan Logan with the ACT. She's going to provide us a bunch of updates and great information as it pertains to our state. So, Schwan, take it over.
All
All
right.
in.
Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. Again, as she said, my name is Schwan Logan. I'm the ACT account executive for the state of Tennessee. So I work with schools and districts regarding ACT products and services. And I'll just jump right into it because there's quite a bit of information and I want to hopefully have time for questions at the end. So I'm going to be looking at a screen this way because these eyes have gotten old and I need to see a bigger screen here. So ACT is committed to ongoing improvements to highlight student readiness for college and career. So why are we changing? We want to improve the testing experience for students and educators. We want students to be able to show their college readiness, not to be able to answer so many questions in a certain amount of time. We want to meet the evolving needs of our stakeholders. We meet with all types of people and they give us, their input. So based off their input, we're making changes to benefit all of our stakeholders. And we want to provide choice and flexibility to our learners, to our schools, as well as to our districts. So some of the first changes that we're making, on an average, we're giving students more time per item, and this will be with English, with the math, with the reading, an average of about 10 seconds per item. I know this may seem like like it's little, but if you've ever watched a basketball or a football game, 10 seconds is a lot of time. The testing time is reduced. Since the new enhanced ACT will be mainly English, math, and reading, now students' composite score will be achieved after just a little over 2 hours of testing. There are fewer items per section. Overall, there's about 44 items less on the new ACT across English, math, and reading. And then we've eliminated the 5th test for national test takers. So instead of national test takers having that extra test, which are field tested items, their tests will be synonymous to the tests that students take on school day testing. So the field tested items will be embedded into the regular test. And then the biggest change, now learners can choose to take the ACT with or without science. So English, math, and reading, and you'll hear me say EMR, these sections now will generate the composite score. When students choose to take the science, it will generate a STEM score, similar to the writing. If students take the writing portion, it will generate a ELA score. All right, so comparing the two. The current test for English, 75 items and students were given 45 minutes. On the enhanced test, students will have 50 items, 10 of them will be field tested, and they now have 35 minutes. For the old test, reading, they were given 40 items in 35 minutes. On the enhanced test, they will be given 36 items, 9 of them will be field tested, and now they'll get 40 minutes to take the test. For the old test, the math, 60 items, 60 minutes. On the enhanced version, they will get 45 items, 4 of them will be field tested, and they will get 50 minutes to test. And on the science, the current test, 40 items in 35 minutes. On the enhanced test, 40 items still, 6 of them will be field tested, and they will get 40 minutes. There will be no change in the writing. And as you can see, again, the testing time has decreased compared to the old version. Alrighty, and then when you look at the timing, for the English test, the current test students had about 36 seconds per item. With the enhanced version, they'll have about 42 seconds per item. With the math, they had 60 seconds, 1 minute per item. With the enhanced, they'll get about 67 seconds per item. Reading on the current test, 53 seconds per item. And on the enhanced version, they'll have about 60 seconds, 67 seconds. So a huge increase of 14 seconds. And then the science, they originally had about 53 seconds per item, and they'll have about 1 minute per item on the enhanced version. Alrighty. And so some changes to the sections. All of the sections will have their reporting categories will be rebalanced, and I'll show you that in the next slides. For the English, we'll be adding stems. So the current test, they would just have a number, and students just had to know that they needed to fix the sentence where the number was. On the enhanced version, it will actually tell them what they need to do. What's the best way to rewrite this sentence? They're reducing the lengths of some of the English passages, and then they're adding an argumentative essay and items to go with it. For the math, they're reducing the number of answer choices from 5 to 4. They're reducing the number of items aligned to integrating essential skills reporting category, and they're reducing the number of items that require a longer time to read. For reading, they're reducing the length of some of the reading passages. They're increasing the percentage of items aligned to integration of knowledge and ideas reporting category. And then in the science, they're ensuring that at least one passage per form addresses an engineering and design topic, and they're increasing the number of items required for scientific background knowledge. Right. And here's that rebalancing. For English on the current test, a little over 50% of the items were conventions of standards of English, so basic grammar. So now on the enhanced version, only 38 to 43% are that category. Knowledge and language, that category will now be 18 to 23%. And then the production of writing, 38 to 43%. Remember now, field tested items are now included. So for that English, remember there's 50 questions, 10 of them are field tested, which is how we got that 20% of those items are field tested. For the math, usually the preparing for higher math category, which include numbers and quantity, algebra functions, geometry, stats, and probability, that was 57 to 60% of the test. Now it's 80% of the test. And then that integration of integrating essential skills portion is now 20%, making this 100%. Now modeling will be within these categories. So within these two categories, 20% or greater of these will be modeling questions between these two categories. And remember, those 4 field tested items are included, making that 9%. For reading, key ideas and details used to take up the majority of the test, 55 to 60%. On the enhanced version, it will be 44 to 52% of the questions. Craft and structure will be 26 to 33%, and the integration of knowledge and ideas is 19 to 26%. And remember, there's 36 questions, 9 of them will be field tested, making that 25%. And then finally, science. 45 to 55% of the current test was interpretation of data. Now that will be 36 to 47% of the test. 17 to 31% of the test is scientific investigation, and the evaluation of models, inferences, and experimental results is now 22 to 36%. And then remember, it's 6 questions that are field tested, making that 15%. So ACT has done its research, and pretty much they've realized that there's little impact to the composite score when you remove science. So these are the studies that shows the minimal differences. So that's why they removed it. There was no huge difference in the composite score when science was not included in the composite. Alrighty. And then the things that are not changing, the scale will continue to be a 1 through 36. No matter what, a 36 is still a 36. All right. Scores from tests taken prior to the rollout of the new composite score will not change. So students who have taken the ACT before the change, their scores will not change. Only if you take the new test will you fall into the new ACT composite. You still will have the ability to predict success in first year college credit bearing courses. That will not change. And then ACT will always still offer paper, pencil, and online test options regardless. Alrighty. And so the rollout schedule. So starting in April of this year, April of 2025, ACT National online only. So our students taking the Saturday test online only, they will get the new composite score and they will get the choice to have science included on their test. So beginning in April of 2025, that also includes the summer, June and July testing, only national online testing. They get the new composite and the science choice. In September of 2025, Saturday testing with paper pencil will be included, but now all tests will get the updated composite score. So I want to be clear, all Saturday testing starting in September, all Saturday testing for all modes will be the new test, the science choice and the new composite. But school day testing will still be the same, the current test, but they will get the new composite score. So if they take the science during district testing, they will now have a STEM score. And then spring of 2026, state and district testing will be included with the science choice and the new composite. So by spring of 2026, all modes will be the new enhanced version. Right. So I put this in writing to make sure. So again, April, June, and July 2025, online Saturday testing will have the new composites calculated from the English, math, and reading only, and they will get the science choice. Starting in September of 2025, all composite calculations for all test modalities, Saturday and state and districts, will be calculated using English, math, and reading only. If they take the science, they will get the STEM score. And then again, starting spring of 2025, state and districts will move to the new testing modes. Alrighty. And then to go back, that I want to make sure we're clear that STEM score, it will be calculated, not the STEM score, sorry, the new super score will be calculated the new way. So if a student took the test the old way and the new way, their new super score will be calculated using the new method. So they will have that STEM score. And then again, the core version, when it comes to pricing, the core version of the ACT containing English, math, and reading will be less expensive than, of course, all 4 sections. So for Saturday testing, students will register for the ACT, which is the English, math, and reading. It's $65. If they do the science, it will bring it up to $69. And if they add the writing, it will be an additional $25. So without science, it's $90. With science, it's $94. Okay. And again, ACT remains committed to our fee waiver programs, and it will still apply to the new enhanced version. All right. All right, so I've put a website for the enhancements and I've put my information. So I will open it up for questions now and be able to clarify any things that may seem confusing or questions that you have. And you could just come off mute and ask your questions.
Feel free to type your question in the chat too, if you like.
Are you all saying that I presented this so well that there's no questions? Okay, I see one. It says, how do you advise counselors with such large caseloads, advise students on these changes? Wow. Someone says, it seems more confusing than ever. Oh, I'm sorry that it seems more confusing. So the main thing that has to be done, I would say, is the first thing that when students apply to colleges, they need to see if that college requires the science score. So that's the first things, so they can determine if they need to have that score or not. But I would just advise them that pretty much now they're actually getting more time to test, and the test is actually shorter. That's what I would, but also there is that website that also explains it, and it also has a video in there as well. And I can send you that video as well, and it breaks down the changes into more manageable parts. Kelly, I hope that's helpful. All right. And April says, can you explain how the super score will be reported now that the EMR test? So with the super score, now when they cross over into the new testing, their super score will still only give the best English, only the best reading, only the best math score, and what their science score, whichever best science score that they have, or the only science score, will now be combined with their best math score and create that STEM score. Yes, that STEM score, April, for that super score. I hope that makes sense. Are there any videos from ACT that we can share with parents? Yes, there is a video that can be shared. And if you go to this website, ACT Enhancements, that it has the information in writing, and there's also a video there. And if you don't see a video, write my email down and let me know, and I can get you that video. And also, if any of you would like a copy of this PowerPoint, you can, if you all SACAC, you can give it to them, or they can get it from me.
Schwan, with me being on the college side, in at one of our flagship university, has ACT heard anything from higher education institutions on how they're thinking of planning to move forward to potentially help our school counselors think how to advise their students?
Yes, we've talked to several, and a lot of them, they suggest that students do take the science part, because one, you get a lot of students who may come in and they're undecided. So if you don't have the science and they decide they want to go with nursing or a STEM major, if they already have that information. Some colleges are still going to require that science be taken, not so involved with the score, but they want it to be taken. So that's what we're hearing. And students have nothing to lose by taking the science test, except, an additional few minutes on it. But the schools that I have talked to, when I explain these enhancements, they're like, we're going to still require science because students change majors. And just think the purpose of us, a lot of times, if we're doing district testing, if we're doing it at school to keep them from having to try to find a ride or go out on Saturdays to, take the test. So if we don't give them the science, now you leave it up to them to have to go and now take the whole test over just to get that science portion of it. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Right.
And then Schwan, Tyler had asked as well, does every testing location require, does every testing location require or offer the paper test?
Well, now some will offer paper, some will offer online, some will do both. So now when students register for the ACT to do Saturday testing, when they go in, they'll pick if they want paper or online, and then it will tell them all the locations near them that do paper or online.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, April. She says the link above is tracking college requirements related to the new ACT. Any other questions? And now I'm noticing, there's very few places now that are doing the online, but they're getting there. Like I live in the Memphis Shelby County area, and when I just went in to look at who's offering online, the nearest place was in Arkansas for students here. So any other questions? And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get everything in time.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Schwan, again for presenting and providing this really important information. It's stressful. Change is always stressful, but happy to see that it's going to shorten the length of the test and shorten not put as much stress on our students as possible. So thank you again. I'll leave up Schwan's slide until our next session so that you have plenty of time to copy down her contact info if you need to contact her in the future. Like she mentioned, that if you would like copies of this slide deck, just reach out to her. And again, the recording will be up on the SACAC website in probably just about a week or so, 2 weeks or so. I would imagine they put it up pretty quick. But yes, thank you so much again. We're on break for another about 15 minutes, so we'll reconvene around 10:30, everyone. And so yeah, we'll see you back in a few. Thank you again. Welcome back, everyone. We're ready for our next session, and it's always a favorite, of course, the FAFSA. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Ann Edmonds, who's going to introduce our next presenter. So take it away, Ann.
Thank you, Trisha. I'm Ann Edmonds Aguirre. I'm at Father Ryan High School, although I'm currently at home because if you heard us talking a little bit a moment ago, Father Ryan's one of a few schools who's having a few staycation sick days. But I am really here to just tip this off to my good colleague and friend, and hopefully most of you know him, Jason C. The only thing I can take credit for is passing along the idea of the title for this session. At NACAC, one of the vendors, and I'm sorry that I don't remember which one, but had all sorts of just really fun buttons for counselors. And my favorite was "What the FAFSA?" And so hopefully you can interpret why that's so great. And because last year was such a rough year with, so I brought some back to Jason and Eric Farmer, and I really wanted to make sure that all of you in Tennessee could benefit from Jason's wisdom. If you don't already know Jason, he works for TSAC and is just our favorite FAFSA expert and an amazing presenter, and wants to just kind of share some tips and tricks that maybe you do or maybe you don't already know, and talk about all of the the changes and improvements that have been gone on from last year's FAFSA to this year FAFSA, and maybe even this week that changes that have been to the FAFSA. But I will help facilitate any questions that I see in the chat. But other than that, I'm turning it over to Jason. Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome, guys, and good morning. It's always great to have this opportunity to present, probably to a lot of people I do know, hopefully, right, Ann? That said, you jump in here anytime with any questions. Guys, for those of you that know myself or the team, a lot of these screens that I'm about ready to present to you guys, I'm going to assume you've heard them from me and this, that, and the other. So as always, if nothing else, this might be a good time just to, I'm going to say, chat some questions or some things that you're seeing. And let me be clear about that as well. Like you, I'm doing FAFSA workshops all day, every day. What's very interesting is my team, right? There's 8 of us statewide. And I don't think any of them is joining right now, but we've had a laugh here in the last week that sometimes they will text from a workshop a scenario that they're experiencing with the FAFSA system, right, online. And the running joke a little bit is like, hold on, are you doing the same FAFSA that I'm working on right now at, fill in the blank Nashville High School? Anyways, so as always, folks, by all means, if you've got a question, you've seen something that's weird or something like that, feel free to use the chat and pose that question, and we'll relay it to me. As I'm about ready to click to advance to slide 1, just keep in mind, everything you're hearing from me today is as of today, Thursday, February 6th. And with that said, let's begin. We're going to begin at the top, forgive me. Let's go over some deadlines, and specifically deadlines from a 25-26 FAFSA perspective. Guys, as a reminder, we do have varying FAFSA deadlines based upon program. So the earliest 25-26 FAFSA deadline is that April 15th for promise purposes, right? Tennessee Promise for our high school seniors and students who are utilizing Promise, and also for TSAA priority, all right? Tennessee Student Assistance Award. That's the state's version of the Pell Grant. I think many of you know this, but unlike a lot of our other programs, TSAA is state appropriated, meaning we're at the mercy of the funding of funding that we request from the state each and every year. And so April 15th is that priority, right? Where we, essentially for any student, and specifically here, guys, TSAA, remember per statute, it does say U.S. citizens are granted first priority, and we only ever have enough money to award U.S. citizens, okay? So as a reminder, April 15th is that priority deadline for TSAA, but there's always a chance, depending on funding, where sometimes we are able to award TSAA out a bit further. But again, April 15th, FAFSA deadline for Tennessee Promise and for TSAA priority. Thereafter, for the Hope Scholarship, for Reconnect for our adult students, right? Tennessee Promise for adult students, otherwise known as Tennessee Reconnect. That FAFSA deadline is not until September 1st, specifically for those students enrolling in the fall. The point I'm making here is, for assuming we're mostly school counselors on this webinar, right? Most of us are going to push that priority of April 15th for specifically Tennessee Promise, for students that may qualify from a need perspective TSAA. But guys, the point here is there is a runway for other programs as well, Hope, Reconnect, et cetera, depending on the student that you serve. And then finally, November 1st specifically is the Wilder-Nafee FAFSA deadline, specifically for the fall trimester. As a reminder, Summer trimester, the deadline's June 30th, but most of our TCATs use that 24-25 FAFSA from a summer trimester perspective. So that's why I don't have June 30th on the screen, because that typically is for the 24-25 FAFSA for any student that's wishing to enroll at a TCAT this summer. For school counselors that have access to FAST, which is our financial aid system of Tennessee, this is where you can pull reports to track your promise applicants. Because the majority of our high schools, public, private, charter, because the majority of our high school seniors complete the Tennessee Promise application, right? I encourage, and you know this about me, I encourage all of you to pull right now that Tennessee Promise report to track your FAFSA. So if you're a school counselor, hopefully you're well aware of this. But if you happen to be a new school counselor, I actually had someone to email me while my friend Catherine was speaking early this morning. If you're a new school counselor, you can email me and I'll share with you a high school user request form where we can create you an account so that you have access to these important reports, so that you can monitor completion at your respective high school. This screen is simply a screenshot of the report screen that once you have an account, you have access to. And again, the reminder is, especially if you're at a school where, approximately 100% of your high school seniors complete the Promise application, the Promise report is the way to go and to track FAFSA completion. For others,
Jason,
yes, and I was about ready to say something about you here in a second, but go ahead, Ann.
Okay, well, I just wanted to interject. At Father Ryan, we ask all of our seniors to complete the Tennessee Promise application for two reasons. One, we think it's worth 5 minutes of their time to complete the application to have the backup plan, even though 96% of our students do attend a four-year college. But more significantly, because we are now pulling those reports that Jason is talking about. And for the students who did, I think we got about probably 95% completion of the Tennessee Promise application. We can see who has and who has not filed the FAFSA and send reminders to those families. And so it is very, very helpful.
Yeah, and thank you. No, and forgive me. I mean, the example I was going to use, and forgive me, what you just shared is awesome. What I was going to say is, if you are a high school, well, for whatever reason, maybe only half your students completed the Tennessee Promise application. Right above that, you see in the screenshot this FAFSA by high school report. That's another FAFSA report that you have access to, that in our system relies upon the connection of an ACT test record and or an SAT test record if a family shares it with us, with the FAFSA within our system. The reason I don't promote that one quite as much right now is because that's a manually connection perspective that teammates back at the office are working on connecting those things in the system and stuff. So sometimes that FAFSA by high school report is a little behind the quote Promise FAFSA report as you see highlighted. Last reminder about the Promise report, make sure you're selecting the 25-26 academic year as you pull it, because that is the FAFSA that our high school seniors are completing right now. So make sure when you get to this screen, you select that 25-26 academic year so that you are seeing what your high school seniors are completing as it relates to that 25-26 FAFSA. So let's get into the FAFSA reminders. It's now February 6th. Most of us have probably been doing FAFSAs for going on 2 months. When I was down at, I guess when I presented at the TACRO conference in Memphis back in November, that was the day, I think it was that week before Thanksgiving. That was the day that I received communication that FAFSA was actually opened. So anyway, so since about that time, early December, most of us have been doing FAFSAs. And guys, this is just a reminder for all of us. As I always say, you do you when it comes to FAFSA, right? If there's something that works for you, you continue doing you. But generally speaking, student8.gov accounts, in a perfect world, users would create these accounts at least one day prior to completing the FAFSA, because as some of you have experienced, and especially as it relates to that automatic usage of the IRS transfer, now known as the DDX, generally speaking, that account must be authenticated with the Social Security Administration in order for that DDX to happen. So, for example, last night, I was at Cane Ridge, working among several colleagues from the college access community here in Nashville. And we had one particular parent that night, last night, create their account. Well, once they created, they logged in, they saw the invite from their student, and they got in the parent section, and all of a sudden they started getting all the tax questions. What is your adjusted gross income? Look at line 11. What is your income earned from work? Look at line 1Z, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they came over to me, the professional's like, Jason, like, why is it asking them all this question? It's like, did you just create the account? And they're like, yeah. It's like, well, that's the reason. In a perfect world, in order for that IRS DDX to work, the account must be created and authenticated, which typically takes one day to happen. So again, if you are someone that has a workshop coming up at your school, obviously, friendly reminder, I would share with parents and students, hey, if you're coming to this, make sure you create your student8.gov account, ideally one day prior, so that hopefully they experience the best of this new FAFSA. As it relates to mixed status families, and for those listening, as many of you, myself included, we've learned this term in recent years. Mixed status families. This is where you have the student who's a U.S. citizen, and their parent or parents may not have a status, right? May not have Social Security numbers. As a reminder, last year, for the first time, parents without socials had to create accounts. Many of them were also asked to complete something called the identity confirmation process. As a reminder, that identity confirmation process is not required and is no longer even an option as it relates to this parents that are just now creating their accounts that don't have socials. So they will not see that as, or they should not, per my colleagues and per recent experience working alongside such parents, they should not receive anything about the identity confirmation process. But as a reminder, such parents will still need to create their student8.gov account / their FSA ID account, and they'll simply indicate, I don't have a social, and then they'll move on. Again, as a reminder about this population, unlike, for example, myself, a U.S. citizen who has a social, when I create my student8.gov account, I have to have that one-day authentication period. For our parents without socials, they're actually authenticated, quote unquote, on the spot, meaning they are able to have full functionality as soon as their account is created. That being said, the one remaining glitch that we should all be aware of is when working with a mixed status family, right? Again, student's a U.S. citizen, parent does not have a social. It is best to start the FAFSA from the parent's perspective and invite the student. So do the parent part first, invite the student, and then once the parent part has been submitted, then the student should log in and complete their part. An example from yesterday, I was working with a colleague up in Upper East Tennessee by phone, and she had a mixed status family where, in this case, mom and dad, unmarried but living together. And as many of you know from a FAFSA perspective, that is, quote unquote, a marital status selection, unmarried, comma, but living together from a biological parent perspective. If selected, and these are two parents that, although no social, each did file taxes as one head of household and one single. That's an example where both parents had to create accounts. And because neither had socials, my instruction to my Upper East Tennessee colleague was, start with one of the parent, right? You're going to enter the student's information, keep on going. Then you're going to identify the spouse at the end. Once that parent's done, then that other spouse without a social should log in, complete their section. And then finally, the student should thirdly log in and complete the section. And they did it just like that and had no issue submitting the FAFSA in that mixed status family option or perspective. Anyways, so mixed status families. Might have some questions about that in a second. No worries, and jump in here at any time with that. I actually just kind of went over this about student8.gov accounts, kind of as a reminder. If you're working with a two-parent household where the parents are married and they file taxes jointly, that's still the example where I just need the student to have an account, one parent have an account, and typically they should be able to rock and roll from there. Again, many of you are experiencing this. In these situations, right, that student section, should take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Not that this is a race. Let me be clear. Not that this is a race, but generally speaking, student sections taking students about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Then once the parent logs in, the parent section, my experience is averaging about 5 minutes, and that's it, which is awesome for, again, the majority of families that we're serving right now. Selfishly, right, many of you have seen this from our road shows last 2 years. Sometimes, right, a lot of words on a screen. This is just a photo as an example of, hey, look at this couple here, right? This couple, in theory, their son in this case, if parents are married, right, in this example, I just need the dad to have an account, the student to have an account, and they're ready to rock and roll with the FAFSA. The only exception is if for whatever reason you have married couple that filed separately, that would be that example where I would need each of these people to have an account because each would need to complete a section of the 25-26 FAFSA. And thanks for sharing that PDF, and kind of a good segue. Let's talk about eligible non-citizenship, at least from a FAFSA completion perspective, because, right, we get these questions all the times from the families that we serve, you and I. As a reminder, from a federal and state aid eligibility perspective, the students that I'm going to encourage to complete the FAFSA are students that are either U.S. citizens or one of the following as outlined on the screen, that who otherwise would be considered an eligible non-citizen. So a permanent resident, someone that has a green card. In this screen, that card that you see to the right at the top of the screen, that is an example of a green card. On that green card, you will see a USCIS number. On the student's FAFSA, when they're asked, what is your citizenship status? If they have a green card, you will select the eligible non-citizen, and then that will open up the field that will then ask for their A number, which again is the USCIS number found on the green card. Students that have I-94 arrival departure records showing specifically refugee status, asylee status, Cuban Haitian entrant status, or a parolee status, specifically one of those 4 statuses, those students are considered eligible non-citizens. Would select that, and they would find their A number as well on such documentation. Folks, here in Nashville specifically, I have worked obviously with students who have green cards, students that have I-94s showing asylee granted or refugee granted. So I have worked for a number of years with these students. But the final 2 eligible non-citizenship categories, I have never myself, you may have, I have never myself worked with a student that has a T visa, granted for being a victim of human trafficking, nor have I ever worked with a student that has a battered immigrant and child status. Again, that's speaking for me. The point of these two, especially from the T visa perspective, there are a lot of visas, and those of you that have heard me present at other venues, oftentimes you hear me talk about the alphabet soup of visas, right? Because there are literally from A to Z an alphabet soup of visas that can be granted. But that being said, the only visa type that is considered an eligible non-citizen is that T visa. So, when I'm like this, obviously I'm live completing this webinar. If some of you were to chat right now, ooh, Jason, I'm working with a student that has an N visa or an F visa or a U visa. And folks, I'm not making these up. If your next question is, though, are these students eligible? Short answer is no, right? Because the only, as of today, eligible non-citizen visa type is that T visa granted for human trafficking. The other visa types would be ineligible for, quote, federal or state aid until their status were to change to be probably specifically a green card holder or ultimately U.S. citizenship was granted, is generally what I see. Anne, you want to chime in?
Yes, the links that I shared really relate to your previous slide. But if you all haven't seen them, SACAC shared these links from NACAC earlier this month. For mixed status families, there's been a lot of concern with the recent administration about whether or not they should file the FAFSA with privacy concerns. And so the PDF really just outlines some clear factual information to be able to share with families and some guidelines. And then the link on NACAC's website just refers to a whole bunch of other resources for undocumented students. So just wanted to make sure that you had those should they become available. And it looks like Jason has shared all sorts of other EdTrust resources, which they've got some lot of great resources specifically working with undocumented students.
Yeah. And some of those that I just posted could be redundant with the ones from NACAC, right? Because a lot of these entities are all working together. Shout out, I'll say this, shout out my friend KP, that's probably Kelly, that's probably on listening as well. But locally, hold on, Kelly and others, I'm not going to take any credit for this. Kelly and others also compiled several of the resources that I just shared. Just wanted you to have them, especially when working with students that, again, mixed status families where there has been some concern expressed. There's some great resources out there to potentially help, the family navigate to the decision that's best for them and their situation. While we're on the topic, who would not be considered citizens or eligible non-citizens. So again, anyone that's hold any other visa type, individuals with TPS, temporary protected status, these individuals would not be eligible for federal or state aid. And, as I did and some of you may have watched me on it last week, I actually did a webinar with EdTrust last week, and some great information from that webinar that was shared. But as one of the speakers indicated, is from a DACA student perspective, I'm pretty sure she said that we're no longer from a high school age perspective working with any DACA students or students that have received that deferred action for childhood arrival status, since that has from a new student perspective, that program no longer is I guess taking in new students right now. But again, these students in these categories, again, are not citizens and not eligible non-citizens from a federal state aid eligibility perspective. And so, when I work with such students, and especially working this time of year as we're thinking about doing the FAFSA, when I learned that they may fall under one of these categories, that's when I share with them. It's like, well, listen, I wouldn't do the FAFSA because you're not going to qualify federal state aid. And then I connect them with some of these resources and or, connect them with, depending on where I am in the state, some of those colleges that might have, quote, more financial aid for some of these students and encourage them to potentially, interface with those schools to see what a college affordability may look like in their case. QR code. I think one of the links obviously is Ed Trust. So look at the link in the chat, but this QR code will also share that link from our partners at the Education Trust. Couple more slides. 'Tis the season where we are presented questions about parent situations, specifically from a divorce perspective. Hey, Anne, this is our situation. Which parent should we use on the FAFSA? Or, hey, Tyler, blah, 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 blah. This was one of those things that when I received it back in the fall, this understanding of this FAFSA parent wizard, Ann knows this, I shared it with everyone. And so hopefully many of you have already seen this, whether it's from me or one of my outreach colleagues. But that being said, when asked about these, quote, unique parent situations where parents are, say, divorced and blah, 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 I've gotten to the point where it's like, hey, Google FAFSA parent wizard, work through those questions, because folks, what the parent wizard does is it imitates what the student goes through in the tell us about the parent screen. So by all means, take advantage of that. And you have something to share?
I love the FAFSA parent wizard. If you haven't used it, bookmark it, share it with families. I have watched students walk through it so that they know exactly which parent they need to ask to create the FSA ID in situations where they might have assumed based upon previous just experience or thought, well, oh, I think this person might do it. So it is not always the answer that they get, but it's very clear. You can even just put mom and dad in there. So it is very easy. And Jason, I don't know if I shared this story with you yet, but I was visiting Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania earlier in December and was sitting next to a student, mixed status family situation. So she actually grew up right in the same hometown as my husband. And she had had a lot of trouble last year filing the FAFSA, and she hadn't yet filed it for this year. And so one of her parents had been able to create an FSA ID last year. Another parent had not. And so I pulled out my phone, gave her my phone with the FAFSA parent wizard, had her walk through it, and it showed that she only needed one parent to file the FAFSA. And I was like, well, there you go. It doesn't matter which one. It's like, use the one that has an FSA ID. So it is super, super easy. It is super fast. So make sure you have it bookmarked.
And thank you. Ashley, by the way, I saw your question. We will get to it, not to tease, but we'll get to it. Who is not a FAFSA parent? Guys, this is that time of year where, again, conducting FAFSA workshops statewide. I'm, can I say, blessed to work alongside, many of you on this call, if not all of you, but also encounter all the families that you serve, and get to experience scenarios, right, that maybe I never thought of, and this, that, and the other. But bottom line, this is to me always a good reminder for all of us. From a FAFSA perspective, always remember grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters will never be the parent on that FAFSA for a dependent student. Never. Unless they've adopted the student. So like last night, sweet, sweet, sweet grandmother was at the event I was at, and had all her tax information, was ready to rock and roll. And, thankfully, I'll say this, she introduced herself as, hey, I am such and such's grandparent. And I was like, great. Question, have you adopted this student? And she goes, oh, no, sir, but I do have legal guardianship. I was like, perfect. And then that's when I explained there's going to be a question that asks the student, are you or were you in a legal guardianship? You'll check that box. FAFSA will now deem the student independent, where only their information is needed. And then I gave the family a heads up that at some point in time, the student's college will want to most likely confirm the guardianship status, which means these court documents that the grandparent had with her. And I looked and they specifically read legal guardianship or legal guardian, right? And, I said, hey, this is what you're going to give to the college when requested. That will confirm the independence, which will allow this FAFSA to only be based upon her income information, and the quote biological parents is not needed. That being said, folks, just remember this, right? In terms of, generally speaking, a relative of a student is never going to be their information is never going to be needed on the FAFSA, period. Sometimes I get the questions of, well, but I get to claim the student on taxes. And folks, great. That's IRS law, right? I'm not a CPA. You do whatever your CPA advises from an IRS perspective, right? But FAFSA is FAFSA. The IRS is the IRS. For FAFSA purposes, again, these individuals here are never going to be that person, that parent on the FAFSA, unless they have adopted the student. So we're at the end. FY, I will post this in the chat right now. I know some of you, I know my friend, my other friend, Ann, is on the call, not just my Father Ryan friend, Ann, but I think a lot of you have become accustomed to our short FAFSA videos. I know many of you began asking for those 1st of December. Those have finally been recorded. They're up on the website, collegefortn.org/FAFSA. Select. This is a change. I apologize. They changed the website on me. It's now under the financial aid tab instead of the money for college tab. But if you click on financial aid, you do see the same drop down menu. And if you click on how to fill out the FAFSA, that will take you to the videos, or just by going to collegefortn.org/FAFSA, that will take you there as well. Y'all know this. I'll drop my email in the chat here in a second. Trish, if you want to, you can we can stop sharing if we want to for a second. Go to Ashley. Great question. And for those of you, some of you may see the Q&A, maybe some of you don't. Question is, what guidance has come out now that someone who is not a government official has access to some information from the U.S. government? I'm assuming this may include FAFSA info too. Don't know for sure. So many of you know this. Over the last, I guess, year of the 24-25 FAFSA rollout, one thing that the U.S. Department of Education, and kudos to them, seriously, when they saw the glitches that were happening, the problems that we all experienced, they finally appointed a few individuals, basically as ombudspersons, that began interfacing with me and other state leaders from the TSACs nationwide. And anyways, I have a weekly now standing state leader call with these individuals from the U.S. Department of Education. And this question was asked by one of my colleagues nationwide yesterday about, some of the news coming out of D.C. regarding, President Trump's putting in people in different positions, this, that, and the other, and that they were hearing from another state some concern of families submitting the FAFSA because they didn't want some non-governmental people to now have access to their information. Was this also related to FAFSA as well? And folks, that's a long way of now saying a short answer is no comment at this time. That's not coming from me. I am simply regurgitating what my U.S. Department of Education colleague said yesterday. So, Again, as of today, all this is as of today. So obviously, if a family comes, if I like tonight, I'm going to be in Clarksville doing a FAFSA workshop. If I have someone that expresses concern for doing the FAFSA, my advice is like, listen, this is a FAFSA. Ultimately, in order for a student to be considered for Pell Grant, for student loans, for the Hope Scholarship, for Tennessee Promise, just as a reminder, this application, selfishly for us, is due by April 15th from a Promise TSA perspective, September 1st from a Hope Scholarship perspective. So, hey, if you have a concern, because I'm not going to have answers on what necessarily today, who has access to this information, that information. We can assume this information is only within the U.S. Department of Education. But again, if you have concern, feel free to, you, the family, feel free to kind of take a step back, monitor everything, and just be mindful of those deadlines selfishly from a state aid perspective. To all of you, another reminder, reminder that we do have an appeals process. And so if a student, for whatever reason, ever misses a deadline, an application deadline, we do have an appeals process. Let me be clear. No guarantees on whether or not the appeal will be approved for missing a deadline for whatever reason it may be. But again, a reminder, right? If a student, misses an application deadline for whether it's the dual enrollment grant, whether it's Tennessee Promise application, whether it is the FAFSA for Promise purposes or Hope Scholarship purposes, we do have an appeals process that the student can seek potential relief for missing. I think that's one thing I've been sharing with various counselors, just as a reminder, especially as we work with families that at times, and not just this year, but in other years, have expressed concern of completing a federal government application. Let's be clear. Many of you know I've been doing this now for 19 years. 2006 when I began, I encountered families that then had concerns about, quote, completing the FAFSA, right? And this, that, and the other. And so that's again, always what I stick to. It's like, listen, for my programs, these are the deadlines you need to be cognizant of, right? And then if for some reason you were to miss a deadline, but then subsequently submit the application after the fact, in this case, the FAFSA, there is an appeals process for exceptions. There is that link to the appeals process. All right, other questions? Or Ann, anything, Trisha, Tyler, anything you think I need to tackle that I did not?
I'm curious, Jason, what have been just some of the timelines in terms of, for example, you said FSA IDs might be more likely to become within 1 and not have to wait 3 days.
Yeah.
If a student files the FAFSA, like, both student and parent, about how long is it getting processed? My understanding is amazingly, even back in late November, or even October, colleges were receiving the FAFSAs very quickly, just so that we can all understand what timeline to expect and share with the students.
No, and thank you. So yeah, a couple of things, FSAD, and Ann and I have talked about this back when I was on campus and doing their workshop, because I think I just learned from an FSAD perspective, they've always said 1 to 3 days from an authentication, but generally speaking, per my now contacts at the U.S. Department of Education, for most users that have a social that has to go through that authentication, it typically just takes 1 day. And I think I told you the 3 days typically happens when you maybe create your account on a Friday, and apparently authentication does not occur Saturdays and Sundays. So that's when typically the 3 days come into play. So for the most part, if you're creating your account, Sunday through Thursday, you're probably going to be authenticated within that 1 day period. In terms of application processing, you're on it. I mean, we're really back to normal, and back to, quote, actually a new normal where processing is taking about 1 to 3 days now from the actual application. Now, I think this is a good reminder. I know when Ash is on here and you and several others that pull those reports, just thinking about it though from this perspective. I had my friend Connie Hensley text me this morning. Jason, I have a student that submitted the FAFSA January 23rd, and they're not on the FAFSA report. And then Connie went on and said, "Hey, but I'm looking at the FAFSA. It's processed. It was processed on January 24th, right? One day." And in this case, obviously, when I looked into our system, there was a matching issue, right? Student had used a wrong social on their promise record or their ACT record. And of course, I cleaned all that up. But to be clear, let's say Ashley and I are doing a FAFSA workshop over at John Overton, which we did recently. Most of those FAFSAs that were filed on and Ashley, I forget what night it was, but say a Wednesday evening, I'd say by Friday, those would have been processed. But always remember, then it takes another day for it to then get to Trisha at UT Knoxville, right? Or me at the state level. So always remember, I'm one of these, Ann, that still says it takes about 5 days from the time that's submitted to the time it should hit us at TSAC. Typically, I'd say 5 days. And at that point in time, if Jason C is not showing as completed on that FAFSA report that you pull, reach out to me or reach out to your outreach specialist, because it could simply be, bless them, they reported the wrong social on another application that's just not connecting things in our system yet.
In what scenarios, Jason, might you suggest this year that a student file a paper FAFSA?
0, none, period. This came up yesterday. So this thing, just like us here, right? Hey, we're all us, meaning here in Tennessee, but this national call with a bunch of yous and me's, just quote from representing other states. I was shocked. This question was asked by a state, and bless them, their heart's in the right place, but there is 0 chance I am now going to suggest a paper FAFSA. To be clear, the U.S. Department of Education, they did say that, in fact, they are still accepting paper FAFSAs, but they then use the language, however, we strongly encourage, families to, if they are encountering an issue, call what they say FISAC, which is the 1-800-433-3243 number. You know this. I can type that if y'all need it. Y'all know the FAFSA hotline. That being said, to help hopefully get whatever issues being experienced, get navigated with and through. So Ann, I would, if any of you are having an issue, we need, and potentially you, if you're not already, you need to work with me, potentially me connecting you with basically a troubleshooter at FAFSA, although oftentimes I'll take a crack at it first, right? But someone at FAFSA that if we need to drag someone across the finish line, that's what we need to do. I would not recommend a paper FAFSA, because I will tell you for fact, yes, there are a lot of folks that submitted paper FAFSAs last year. Those still have not been processed, Ann, because wow. I know at one point in time, I think the number was communicated that over 50,000 people resorted to a 24-25 paper FAFSA, and yeah, those for the most part have not. It's funny, the ones that there's 3 people locally being statewide, that I did say back in March of last year, let's do one, right? And interestingly, within the last now 3 months, we've had issues resolved where those 3 people have finally been able to go online and submit the FAFSA, right? And I will say, I rejoiced. I had a party when that happened. That being said, interestingly, they subsequently received a letter from FAFSA, like after the fact, that was like, well, we also received your paper FAFSA, but we were unable to process it. And this was after the fact. So again, like, no, zero chance, and zero chance.
So you mentioned the FAFSA hotline, and
Yes.
we're probably all familiar with what that looked like last year. What does that look like this year with the increase in customer service agents answering that?
Yeah. And folks, I'll defer to what your experience is, but week to week, they're being apparently wait times are under 5 minutes, and per my U.S. Department of Education colleagues who's tracking all that. I will say that in the field, that is the experience as well that I'm experiencing when I've had to have someone call FAFSA. It's been less than 5 minutes. You know, I think the other thing, folks, I don't mean to preach this, but as always, folks, with any call center that any of us interface with, for whatever reason, pack your patience, right? Pack your patience. Oftentimes, and you've heard me say this, I think over 800 new call center people have been hired by FAFSA since late last spring. And you know, I don't know about y'all. You know, I've been doing FAFSA 19 years. I pretty much know it after 19 years. But honestly, my first 5 or 6, 7 years, I still struggle with certain things, right? And so especially these colleagues of ours at the federal level that are only 6 months new or whatever, there are some times that unfortunately not the best customer service is being provided. And so yeah, just pack your patience. But yeah, and thankfully, a lot of good stuff or at least I'm hearing a lot of positive outcomes with conversations, mostly with the call center, which is good.
That's great.
I mean, I know I don't have to fill the entire hour, but selfishly, maybe 2 quick reminders to everyone. Ned McWhorter Scholarship. It's that time of year. But here's the kind of the reminder. We changed the deadline. We actually, for years, and you know this, for years, Tyler, you know this, for years, February 15th was that application deadline for McWhorter. We actually changed it to March 1st. So students with, and I just dropped the McWhorter link in the chat. So again, any students at your respective schools, 32 ACT, 1430 SAT higher, and a 3.75 GPA. And I do know you have a question. We'll talk offline about that. But those are the students that I would quote target for McWhorter. Again, March 1st is that application deadline. McWhorter is found within the TSAC portal account for the student to complete. In addition to the student's application, we do ask for a 7th semester transcript. And Journey, I believe, my colleague Journey Ellison now is the administrator for Ned McWhorter Scholars Program. I believe she's already sent an email out to all FAST users. Now that we've turned over to the month of February, we will soon be sharing out an email just as a reminder about
Jason, I don't know about anybody else, but all of a sudden I couldn't hear what you were saying. Trisha's nodding, so that might be the. Yeah. Oh, there. Now I heard you. Yep. Hold on. Looks like he's going to change something. Yep. We're still waiting to hear you. Whip.
a little bit.
Oh, there we go. We got you back. We got you back. And I will just add,
Okay.
as we're getting ready to remind our students who may be eligible for the Ned McWhorter, since it is on a Saturday, that deadline, and since the high school needs to send the transcript, we're asking our students to notify us if they plan to apply earlier that week, so we have time to get that information to TSAC.
And thank you for filling the time for a second. Last thing, I just chatted that link. We've redone our Hope Scholarship video about Hope, GAMS, and Aspire, including for the first time, and Ashley, others who have asked for this for the first time, we've weaved in how to keep the Hope Scholarship as well within the video. So that's a great new resource. You know, again, families will find that on our website on the Hope Scholarship, GAMS, and Aspire pages. Is again, then it's a new, I think, 3 minutes in length about the Hope Scholarship and stuff. So, and hopefully you heard all that.
We did.
Yes, thank you so much, Jason, for sharing your wisdom and experience, and just for being a great resource as we support students and families in filing the FAFSA.
Yeah. Hey, and Ann, and all those of you I think that are coming, I think Kelly, correct me, that are coming to the Day of the Hill. I guess I will see some of you then at the end of the month, because I think y'all are actually coming to quote my building downtown and stuff. So I look forward to seeing those of you that come to the Hill Day later on this month.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much again. We will go on another quick break. We will reconvene at 11:45 for our last presentation of the day, which is our Tennessee admissions table talk. So feel free to go take a break, get some coffee, address the line at your door, as Tyler was saying earlier. So again, thank you, and we'll see you back soon.
Trisha, Tyler, thank you. And thank you for that. I am, if it's all right, I think I'm going to log off. I will say shout out to my friend Kevin Harrison. I don't know if he
Welcome back, everyone. We are going to get going on our last session of the day. Hang in there with us. We're almost finished. So our next session is going to be our Tennessee admissions table talk. And we have Tyler and I will be your moderators for this session. And we have some awesome presenters to fill you in on just quick updates and information going into the next cycle or to round out this year, and give you updates. And at the end, we will leave some time for some quick question and answer. We know that we have a stacked panelist group. So if you would like to post any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and or the Q&A option. And Tyler and I will both make sure to address those by the end of the session for sure. But we will be going in alphabetical order. So I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, our first panelist. So each of the panelists will give their own introductions, and then they'll go into their 3-minute spiel, and then we'll pass it on to the next one. So I believe Kelly's up first. Are we going to go alphabetical by institution, Tyler?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll have Kelly up first.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Macenzo, and I have the absolute privilege of being the Director of Undergraduate Admissions here at Marable College. And I'm so excited to be with you today. I've been with the college for nearly 10 years, and I've had the privilege of having really a front row seat to the remarkable growth and transformations of our students' experience. As many of you know, Marable College is a small, private, liberal arts gem nestled in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This location truly provides our students with the best of both worlds. We've got the close-knit community feel of a charming college town here in Marable, Tennessee, as well as the unparalleled access to the natural wonders of my personal belief is one of the best national parks in the country. It's really an environment that fosters both academic excellence and personal growth. Our student body is just shy of about 1,200 students, and that really allows us to cultivate a truly personalized learning experience. Here at Marable, students are known by name, not by number, and that's why I love being a Scot. This personalized approach really permeates every aspect of campus life, from our student athletes who will be competing in the highly competitive Southern Athletic Association, the SAA, beginning fall 2026, to our talented fine arts students who really have incredible opportunities to perform and exhibit and showcase off their work from day one on our campus. Our STEM students additionally benefit from close collaboration with faculty on grant-funded research, which is a great distinct advantage for our undergraduates at Marable College. This direct involvement in cutting-edge research not only enhances their learning, but also really strengthens their resumes for graduate school or going right into the workforce after they graduate from Maryville College. This personalized attention is the hallmark of what the Maryville College experience is all about. We're really deeply invested in our students' success, both inside and outside of the classroom. We're especially proud to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of our renowned American Sign Language English interpreting program. This milestone really speaks volumes about our commitment to our innovative career-focused programs. And it's a point of pride that Maryville College was the first institution in the United States to offer a bachelor's degree for ASL English interpreting. And we actually have near perfect 100% job placement with this program as well for our graduating seniors. Our strong liberal arts foundation is really the cornerstone of the Maryville College education here. Students are able to delve deeply into their chosen major while simultaneously developing essential critical thinking, communication, and problem-solving skills. And these are skills that we are hearing from today's employers that they are actively seeking. So we want to make sure that our students are at the top of getting those great job placements. Now I want to talk about affordability because obviously that's top of mind to students and families. We understand that financing a college education is a significant consideration for families, and we're committed to making it affordable for students to attend Maryville College. I'm pleased to announce that we guarantee every single admitted student to receive at least $20,000 per year in merit-based scholarships. And that's really just the starting point. Students may qualify for additional scholarships based on academic achievement, talent, or financial need. And we have an amazing group of enrollment counselors who have that personalized approach with every single student and family to work on their individual need. So if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to give me, my team a call. We would love to host you and students on our campus at any time. And hopefully you've seen some of our enrollment team in your schools as well. So thank you again for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Kevin Harrison.
Hi guys, my name is Kevin Harrison. I'm Vice President of Academics and Enrollment Services at the Tennessee College of Applied Tech now. They don't call it technology anymore. We go by Applied Tech for some reason. Here at Nashville, we have 24 main campuses across the state of Tennessee as a system with a lot of external campuses that probably in the neighborhood of 60 total sites across the state that a person can go and take technical education and training at a TCAT. We're part of Tennessee Board of Regents, just like the community colleges in the state. So we focus on job-related skills. So our purpose is to train them in areas that do not require someone to get general education courses. So we do not do the histories and the literatures and those kind of things. We focus on automotive, so to speak, to bring one to point. So what we do is in that program, which is a 16-month program, is train them in the various areas of automotive within that time, giving them the skills, the competencies that they need to be able to go and get that entry-level job. We are very dedicated, I guess you might say, to that workforce aspect of what we do. We have a total of 12 programs here at our Nashville campus, everything from automotive to aviation maintenance, which we've got one of the best aviation programs in the country. In fact, we've got people moving in from Denver to Arizona just to take our program at our school. So that's a great program. We do practical nursing. We've got aesthetics and cosmetology, HVAC, the standard things that would be found at a technical college. As a Tennessee Board of Regents school, we are open to obviously not just federal aid, but state aid. So we don't do the Hope Scholarship here. I jokingly say that we have no hope. So we do Wilder Napier Technical Skills Grant, which is the same central pot of money that the Hope Scholarship comes from. It's not based off of ACT scores. It is based off of Tennessee residency. Any one of you that has never used the Wilder Navy grant could attend a Tennessee College of Applied Technology with a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate and receive those funds. We are also a part of the Tennessee Promise Program, which guarantees free tuition if they complete all the steps that they're supposed to with Tennessee Achieves or whatever other manager of that Tennessee Promise in that area. So they do their community service, they do their FAFSA, and they get enrolled. So we are definitely part of that. The admission process is easy. It's an online application. Not all TCATs require this, but we encourage everyone. We do require at our campus to attend a tour, go to the see their program, do an orientation. We do have waiting lists depending on the program because we have limited space. But that's the reason we have opened up so many different campuses. But that's what we are in a nutshell. If I can help you in any way, I would certainly help or direct who might be across the state to the appropriate TCAT that could help them.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Next, we have Jose Garcia with the University of Memphis.
Perfect. Can you guys hear me? Love it. So apologies ahead of schedule. I am actually traveling back from a work event in St. Louis. But my name is Jose Garcia. I'm the Director of Recruitment Orientation here at the University of Memphis. Going on month 6 here. 11 years of experience in the admissions world. Prior to that, about 13 years of experience in college athletics. So over 20 years in higher education. Love talking about the University of Memphis and what we are. We are one of the 2 flagships here in the state of Tennessee. We're located 7 miles from downtown Memphis in a suburban area, roughly about 22,000 students. Love what we are with one of the most diverse schools in the nation that is not a serving institute. Roughly about 53% of our student body identifies as students of color. About 34% of our kids identify as first-generation college students, and we're a school that's growing. We have truly gone from a regional institution to a national institution where over 24% of our kids are out of state and international, represented by over 100 countries and 49 states here on our campus. A lot to do in terms of academics with over 250 different majors. You have so many different options for students to choose from. Lots of new buildings coming up on campus, from music to engineering. We are also a very unique campus in the sense that not only do you have the large suburban 22,000 person school, we also have a small liberal artish kind of campus that is located in Jackson, Tennessee at University of Memphis Lambeth. So for students that may not want the large campus but want the more residential, smaller, quiet campus, they have that option too at a state price. And I think that's the biggest thing we can do is affordability is the biggest thing we talk about our place. You have so much to do here. The total cost of attendance for an in-state student that is just tuition and fees is a little over $12,000 a year. And that is before any scholarship, grant, or aid. If they decide to live on campus, roughly it's a little over $20,000 a year. And I think that's what makes us so much more attractive to students is the affordability, while still having great campus life, over 350 different clubs, organizations, things to do on our campus, along with just all the amenities that the city of Memphis has to offer. Very lucky for us, we have great partners in the city of Memphis. You have FedEx, AutoZone, International Paper. You have Memphis Shelby County School Districts. Memphis is known as one of the best pediatric medicines in all the world. But again, with the business, with everything across, tons of nonprofits, our kids can not only enjoy a great academic life, great social life, but be able to get those internship opportunities during the school year while still getting those opportunities outside of it. In terms of scholarship, we're very much with us. We have a lot to offer our kids. We have over 700 different scholarships that students can apply for. They automatically reviewed for all merit scholarships. We do require test scores. One caveat to that, if a student has a 3.8 GPA, weighted or unweighted, whatever's the highest on that transcript, we will let that student apply as a test optional student. So there is that one entry fee to the door right there. We want to make sure that we are there for you guys. So we have grown our staff. We have grown our hand out there in terms of getting more and more students to hear what the University of Memphis has to offer. Please, when you get a chance, come down, check us out, see why we are one of those fastest growing schools. We are an R1 Carnegie Mellon institution, which means we are in the top 3.7% of all colleges in the nation and 5% in the world in terms of research dollars, academics, everything of that nature. So really come out and join us for Tiger Nation. I'll be here. Again, thank you for this opportunity, and I'll look forward to answering some questions. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Jose. Next, we have Maddie Mills with UT Chattanooga.
Hey everyone. As you said, my name is Maddie and I'm with the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. I'm one of our admissions counselors. This is my second year here. I originally was a student, and so then after I graduated, I got the chance to work full time at UTC, which was really great. And to be able to like share with students about why I chose to come to UTC and why I fell in love with it. But we're first founded in 1886. We're in the heart of downtown Chattanooga. Chattanooga is known as a scenic city, so it's got a great blend of both urban as well as like outdoor adventure. We're about an hour and a half away from Knoxville, Nashville, Atlanta. You can pretty much get anywhere in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. We've got just under 12,000 students that come to us with about 130 different undergraduate programs of study. We've also got several different athletics that we participate in. We're Division I in our athletics. We play in the Southern Conference. We also have an Army ROTC program on campus. We also have several different events coming up this spring. If you can't make it for a tour during the week, we've got a couple different Saturday options. We have one coming up on February the 15th, as well as March 22nd. And then our big Blue and Gold preview day is going to be on April 5th. This is pretty much just a big open house where students can come see inside the dorms, see campus, talk with different department heads, and get any specific questions that they have answered. But yeah.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. Next, we've got John Paul Murray from Vanderbilt University.
All right, hello everyone. It's good to see some familiar names in the attendee chat, but also some new names to me for those that I haven't met before. My name is John Paul Murray, Associate Director of Admissions at Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. I hope that y'all have had a good day, the virtual drive-in workshop, and happy to be with y'all. A lot of Vanderbilt has remained the same kind of size, about 7,000 undergraduate students, remaining a fully residential institution, so all students living on campus. Admissions process-wise, students are still applying into one of our 4 different undergraduate schools, and at time of consideration, they're considered for both Vanderbilt as well as one of the 4 undergraduate schools. What I wanted to talk about is a little bit of our kind of renewed focus on the state of Tennessee, as well as addressing a little bit of affordability before we turn things over towards questions. So just kind of some fun facts to know about kind of how Tennesseans fit in within the Vanderbilt community. Tennessee is our #1 state as far as where students are coming from. About 13% of our campus are students that are from Tennessee and truly from all over the state. You may know that in recent years, we've had a renewed focus on students that are from more rural parts of the state, as well as students that are a part of Metro Nashville public schools. For students that are from more rural counties or from smaller towns, we've seen an incredible increase in interest, about 100% increase in applications, a considerable number of increase in acceptances for those students as well. And we've been really intentional about trying to be on the road and visit with y'all. If you are in a rural serving district and you haven't connected with us, we would love to get to know you and get to know your students. We've increased about 70% our access to rural schools within the past year. And within this past year, we have a new partnership with Metro Nashville Public Schools that we're really excited about through something called the Nashville Vanderbilt Scholars Program. This is designed to cover direct costs at Vanderbilt for tuition, fees, housing, and meals. Kind of the parameters of the program: the student needs to apply to Vanderbilt through Early Decision 1 or Early Decision 2. They need to graduate from a Metro Nashville Public School high school. They need to qualify for a federal Pell Grant or have parent income at $100,000 or less, and be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, which does include our DACA and undocumented students as well. So a really fantastic program. We don't have official numbers that we can share out just yet, but I will tell you all that we will have some really, really exciting numbers of MNPS representation in our ED classes at Vanderbilt for this year. And just for affordability overall, for those of y'all that may be unfamiliar, we do have a great financial aid program through what's called Opportunity Vanderbilt. We do commit to meeting 100% of demonstrated financial need for any admitted student that is coming to Vanderbilt, regardless of location. So yes, I just talked about all the great things for MNPS, but regardless of what school or what district that you work with here in the state of Tennessee, know that we will meet 100% of need for your students, and they'll never receive a loan from us as well. I know as I've worked at Vanderbilt over the past over 3 years, sometimes there is a misunderstanding that there may be a financial barrier for students, and we want to do everything that we can to make sure that finances are not hindering a student from attending campus. So just wanted to mention that Opportunity Vanderbilt program that we have for students. I think I'll leave it there so that we can have plenty of time for questions, and I'll turn it back over to Tyler or Trisha.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So right now there's no questions in the chat and we have no Q&As. So truly, participants and attendees, if there's a specific question that you have for one of our panelists in their institutions, feel free to drop it in the chat now. It can be a question that's just kind of over encompassing to the state as well, if you would like all of the panelists to just give their feedback on. So if there are any questions anyone's curious about, please feel free. I'm trying to think if there is any other big changes besides ACT FAFSA. I know those were the big ones going into this next cycle and finishing out this current cycle. I don't think there's any drastic changes with what we do, admissions people. Are there any hot pressing topics that anyone's thinking about that you think would be important to the state of Tennessee that we want to talk about or chat about? Awesome. Well, if not, then I would say let's conclude our table talk, and thank you again all for participating and providing those updates and information about your institutions. This whole webinar will be up on the SACAC website, and we can move into our closings. So if you guys want to hop, we're going to talk about some Southern ACAC events. So if panelists, if you would like to stay on, you're more than welcome to. But if not, feel free to hop off. And again, thanks for participating. But we'll move into our closing remarks and just thinking about some things that are coming up. And again, thanking all of our school counselors, and enjoy a school counseling week. But yeah, let me move on to our closing. So coming up in the next immediate future are some of the Southern ACAC events, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them. I believe Kristen had mentioned, or Catherine had mentioned, excuse me, Catherine had mentioned it in her session. We have our Tennessee Legislative Day up on the Hill. That's coming up on February 25th. I don't believe there's any RSVP necessary, but we do have our two state representatives part of the Government Relations Committee. So if you do have questions about those events specifically, feel free to reach out to those two individuals. It is a great day. I've participated in it and I learned a lot, and just kind of just how our lobbying and how our advocating works at the state level. It was really, really interesting. And it is a great day to be able to get connected with our state lobbyists and legislators and get to know them personally and really advocate for what we want in our school education systems, and definitely more advocacy for our school counselors. I know there's been like one bill that we've been trying to move on. So I know that we are continuing to advocate for that. So if you would like to participate, that's going to come up on the 25th. We also have our annual conference that's coming up March 30th through the 31st, which is going to take place in Atlanta, Georgia. The conference itself is over 2 days, but I know that there are opening sessions and community projects to get involved in. So it does take place over 3 days. Registration is live, and I believe the early bird registration did just pass. So if you are really interested in that, attending that conference, I absolutely love the annual conference every year. So check out the registration information on the SACAC website. Um, and then we also have summer seminar, which is really exciting because it's going to be here based in Middle Tennessee with Belmont and Vanderbilt hosting. This is just a really great event for new college counselors to get connected, learn the ins and outs of the profession, really kind of have that connection piece to learn the ins and outs of our industry and our trade, and really kind of just gain all the pro tips on how to work with students and hear what's happening new in the realm of higher education and all of that stuff. And then there was one event that I wasn't able to fit in, but that is also coming up, which is the SACAC wide drive-in, and that's going to be taking place April 24th. So not just what's happening in Tennessee, but truly what's happening in the Southeast as a region. That registration, I believe, is live as well, and that's up on the website. And again, it's happening April 24th. So if you want to hear what's going on in the world of school counseling as a region, definitely encourage you to take advantage of that event. And then if you have any questions or need anything from Tyler and I, this is our contact info. Definitely all the contact info for Southern ACAC as well. But we thank you for attending. Hope to see you at annual conference and at future Southern ACAC events. If you need anything over the school year, again, Tyler and myself can be resources to you, or Southern ACAC for sure. But thanks again for attending, and hope to see you at annual conference.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be here for a couple more minutes in case anyone has any questions. But
Yes.
thanks for being here.
Oh, Tyler, thanks for dropping the link in there in the chat for everyone.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes, special shout out to Kristen for being our state chair. She's been so helpful to us year after year. Tyler, we still have some attendees in the room, but it looks like they're all headed out. Do you want me to just stop recording now?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we could probably go ahead and end it.